9 months to do this. Hold down there, horsey pie. We're entering into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This is actually something I've used before, a prop from Seattle Unity Church. And when I was using it to share these ideas, we ended up having an auction, which will happen in November at our church as well too. Is it on? I'm not on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put that back on. Am I on now? Now? Am I on now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Am I on now? Oh, there I am.
Really on.
Well, you guys missed the whole beginning? No way I'm going to miss this. You can't get away with doing this too often, so. Particularly if you brought your new friends and they're all going, oh boy, this is a bit much. So we had this prop, and we actually did a silent auction. You know, we have things you do a silent auction for, and someone actually bid it $250 for this horse, and it turned out it was Maureen. It's a very expensive horse. It'll be $500 for those of you who are ready. But we live in interesting times now. Everyone's talking about 2012. Are they not? The end of the world, the times we live in. If you take your little horsey and go down the aisle of Noble or Borders books, you notice like this whole big, huge section on 2012, on the end times, the cataclysmic times that we live in, the apocalypse that we're going through. And everybody has their particular version of what's going to happen and what it's going to look like, whether it's astrologers, or it's metaphysicians, or it's strict Bible fundamentalists, or it's scientists. They're all saying we live in incredibly powerful times, and that something really big is about to happen. And it's happening right now on the planet. And we're all feeling the results of it. And I notice most of the books, when you read them, what it brings up is a big, huge dose of fear and destruction. And that it really, for me, fires my reptilian brain and gets me frightened and afraid. And I have that neural pathway for being frightened and afraid. I want to make a statement before we begin this series of lessons for the next 5 weeks. I want to say, you are all going to get this t-shirt, and it's going to say this: I survived 2012. I thrived during 2012. I am alive in the teachings that help me wake up to who I am. You will survive 2012. Whether you're in a body or not, I certainly can't predict or say, but you will survive because you're not a body anyway. You're a spiritual being, living in a spiritual universe, governed by spiritual law. Your spirit is guaranteed. You cannot be harmed, nor can you be touched. Now, that's a nice theory, but the truth is, it is the truth that sets us free. It's the eternal nature, isness and suchness of what we are. When we look at what's going on right now, we are involved with a lot of change going on our planet. Nobody would doubt that we're going through incredibly difficult, challenging, wonderful times filled with opportunity. And people are predicting what's going to happen. And I want to make a prediction. Right now, someone's prediction is coming true. And someone else's prediction isn't. And that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Course in Miracles, and I love this quote for going over this, says that no one is a reliable witness who has a vested interest. For truth has become not what it is, but what you believe it to be yourself. No one is a reliable witness who has a vested interest, because truth isn't what it really is, it's what we believe it to be. We don't see anything or anyone as it really is, we see things as we are. And so things are constantly changing, things are constantly rearranging in our life, and that is not going to stop. That is always going to continue. Something is always ending and beginning. When you look up apocalypse and the word Greek, it means end times, it means revelation. It means a lifting of the veil, so that which is hidden can be revealed. Do you feel that? It's a lifting of the veil, so that which is hidden can be revealed. And your whole life is about that. We're constantly removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence so the love and the light can shine through. Everyone has that assignment, and whether they're consciously invoking that or just sloppily going through it, allowing it to kick you around so you get it, we have teachings that help us do that consciously, awaken consciously. There's always something on this plane that will be ending and beginning. So as we go through this series of lessons, it's important, as we go through these times together, that we learn to breathe. Yes? Let's breathe in for a moment. And let's breathe out. And then what do? We then breathe in. We just went through an apocalyptic moment, right? We ended, something ended, the breath ended, then the breath begins, and we take it back in again. We breathe in and we breathe out. Things are constantly changing. Always that will be so. Every 7 years, the very cells and atoms in my physical being are different. Luckily, the pattern's still the same, so I kind of look like what I looked like before. But you are not the same creature you were physically 7 years ago. You are constantly involved in a process of change. We said last week that the Tibetan Buddhists see it as kalpas. We said it's a mountain a mile high, a mile wide, a mile deep, and every so often a bird goes by and drops a little scarf on top of a mountain. The amount of time it takes to wear down that mountain is one kalpa. So you get a sense of your eternal forever nature in the midst of whatever changes you're growing through. So when we see people making predictions about what will happen, again, we can't say for sure what they will or won't be. We have teachings to help us choose how we're going to meet those changes that constantly keep happening, that will constantly keep happening in our lives. We can meet them with fear and fight or flight, or we can open ourselves up to oneness and wholeness. That's a choice that we always get to make, no matter what's going on. When Marie and I, 72, when we first met, no, it was probably 72. We started working with the Edgar Cayce material. Anybody remember The Sleeping Prophet and Edgar Cayce? That was our introduction to spiritual truth. And back in those times, he had some really interesting predictions in there about healing bodies and how that would work, some really good ones. And then he had stuff like, in the years 88 to 98, there are going to be massive earth changes happening. And you don't want to be anywhere near a place called California, because California is toast. There will be no California. And we had the map, you know, of the new world, and Arnold and California were not there. He was gone, it was over, it was finished. So you'll relate to this, Renee, Marie. When we sent our resumes out, we still were fearful about those kind of changes. We sent no resumes anywhere near the West Coast, California way. Because why would we want to go there? Of course, we went up to the Northwest, which we found out later on when we got there, was actually sitting on an 11.0 tectonic plate. One of the biggest ones in the world. Seattle sits one on top of. But then, because we were going there, it was safe. Does this sound like anybody you know? So we lived for 7.5 years in the wonderful place called the Northwest. And it was time to leave and take another ministry on. Charlie 3 came and said, you would be perfect in San Luis Obispo. It's got your name written all over it. But I went, I don't want to go to California. So I went and faced the fear. You're here to face the fear and do it anyway. Yes? To look at it and then move through it. And so I went and had this interview. And it was amazing, and it was a fit, like here. We were meant to be here. It was a total yes all the way around. And I came home, and Maureen got knocked on with me on the interview. She actually had a real job, making real money. And at that time, I'm a nurse midwife. And I said, baby, I think we're in trouble. I think we may end up having to go to California. And she went out, and she checked it out, and she came back and said, yeah, I think we're supposed to go. And I'm not exaggerating. We had nightmares about falling over huge cracks in the earth with our children and our German Shepherd dog and our 2 cats. It's so dangerous here. And we just leap over these big fall zones. And then when we got to San Luis Obispo, we got the great, wonderful news that right next to Costco was the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. And it was built on a known fault zone. Oh my God. And it was built with backward plans. So it wasn't really built to specifications. And we were like, oh, you're kidding me. This is completely crazy. My board president, the man who hired me, was named Hari Nam Kar Singh. And he had hair down to the floor. And he worked in the nuclear power plant for 15 years. And he was the most glowing, beautiful being I have ever met at any time, and he still is. And we had an amazing ministry in San Luis Obispo. We got to overcome all our fear about that. And yes, some major things did happen during that time. The earth did rumble, things did change, but it didn't happen the way my ego thinks it will. We all have a particular viewpoint that we're invested in. And anyone who has a vested interest isn't reliable. So we can say, yes, things are going to keep changing. Duh, they always do. They'll keep rearranging, they always will. But the truth is, it won't be exactly like we think it's supposed to be. And even if we're not physically here, we are spiritually present all the time. And that cannot be harmed or touched in any way. We can let that be revealed to the things that cover that. We'll be doing our best work here on the planet that we live on, right here and right now. I believe that the apocalypse that happens now happens through 4 different ways. The first way is below the surface and is invisible to us most of the time. It's slow and it's gradual. Those are the seeds that are cooking inside of you and me. The sequences and consequences of the thoughts, words, and deeds, and habit patterns we have set in motion that are going to be our lessons in love and awakening. And they're not yet bubbling up yet. We don't know what they are. They're going to happen next week for you, maybe, you know, or the week after. I don't know when they're going to come, but the lessons of change will keep coming because we are not these changing beings. We are changeless essence and spirit having an experience of the next thing that our growth is all about. So these things that happen are happening underneath the surface of seeds that are not yet quite bearing fruit. It's invisible most of the time. It's happening underneath the surface. The second way in which things happen, where we have our apocalyptic moments, are through big bad events. Those are the really big things that happen to everyone. Someone gets sick and dies. You know, I know right now, Siobhan's having an apocalyptic moment right now with her body right now. Someone I've noticed driving. People are terrible drivers in this town. They're awful. They're just unbelievable. 4 or 5 accidents a week in a town this small. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you know, someone woke up in the morning in their brand new car, they drove down the corner and somebody hit them. They're having an apocalyptic moment. In that moment, something is ending. My beautiful, perfect car. And something new is beginning. And those things we have no control over.